The Power Hours on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me on this Monday evening. We've got a lot of football to talk about, especially the game of interest for all of us, as the Cincinnati Bengals have punched their ticket to Nashville and will be heading to Nissan Stadium to line up against our Tennessee Titans. We'll have a lot to talk about that as well, but first, let's get to our special guest tonight. Joining me once again on the show, a good friend of the show and one of the best statisticians that I've had the chance to actually talk and work around. No Flags Film.
Hey, man,
thank you for joining the show, buddy.
Statistician, that might be a little bit too generous. I just I go on websites and then type stuff into Excel, but I appreciate it.
Well, believe me, sir, there's no one better in the biz than yourself. So lots of props to you, and thank you for joining us tonight. So, got to get into it real quick before we jump into our top news. A lot of games of interest over the wild card. Were there any particular moments that really just kind of jumped out at you, officiating aside for the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because the Cowboys 49ers game wasn't, a particularly exciting game, but the way that the juxtaposition of how entertaining it was compared to the games we had seen up until that point made it really entertaining. I put like a bunch of free play money on Jimmy Garoppolo over 2.5 rushing yards, and so that whole QB sneak debacle was really frustrating. And then, I tweeted about this for the Steelers game, but I tweeted that broadcasting the Steelers on live television should be a crime. I mean, that is one of just the most disgusting offenses that I have ever watched, honestly. I mean, obviously Big Ben is a crumbling statue in the pocket, and if you look up his passing charts, I think way over half of his throws were behind the line of scrimmage. So terrible offense to watch from that perspective. They can't run any type of, power counter where they're pulling a guard without one lineman tripping over the other one. It's just, it's brutal to watch. And I think that this weekend was a good display of how unnecessary the 7 seed is.
And unfortunate for Big Ben, it looks like he'll be riding off in the sunset. His best years behind him, definitely not the Big Ben of old. Not the kind of game you want to see on a Sunday night prime time, but at least it's over now, and the better matchups are surely on their way.
Hope so.
So throwing it on a small screen, we'll go ahead and jump into our top news. A lot going on today before we get into the games, but hitting the first story off and running, we got a game tonight to settle to finally finish up the wild card slots. On ESPN tonight, the LA Rams are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And the Cardinals have struggled as of late tremendously the last few weeks. So, no flags, what's the Cardinals' deal right now? Is it just the lack of DeAndre Hopkins? Is it the lack of just a pass rush that they're trying to just finally get into touch now that they have, J.J. Watt back? Is it enough to make a difference? Can they make a difference tonight?
Yeah, I think that the Cardinals' second half of the season, I wouldn't say collapse, but just kind of downturn, is a great example of why Coach of the Year should not be an award that simply goes to the team with the best record. Sometimes you just have an example where you've got great personnel that is overcoming bad or mediocre coaching, which I think that Cliff Kingsbury is a mediocre coach. The offense, for the amount of interesting skill position players that they have, the offense is very unimaginative. The way that they use Rondale Moore has lacked a lot of creativity, and I think that a lot of their success this season has just been kind of overpowering teams by having objectively good offensive personnel, having Kyler Murray come in and make crazy plays outside of the pocket. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously a top 5, top 7 wide receiver, depending on how you want to stack that up. And then the defense is really soft. You watch their front against the run, very squishy when it comes to holding up against double teams. The linebackers, they've invested 2 first-round picks and these kind of hybrid skill sets at the linebacker position. Haven't done a great job using them. Their secondary is on paper a weakness, but what they've done as far as kind of straying away from the vanilla coverages that they've run over the past few years, I actually think they've done a good job kind of masking a lot of weaknesses that they have there. But I think that the Rams should win tonight. I think that if Sean McVay isn't able to pull this one out, it's like, not that he should enter the hot seat or anything, but it's legitimate to have conversations about that, I think, for sure. And I think that this is obviously a big game for Matthew Stafford and for the trade and kind of the general direction that the Rams are going with their roster, as far as creating a top-heavy roster, giving up draft capital for established veterans, and a first-round exit in the playoffs kind of puts that philosophy, adds some questions to it. Like, well, if we're going all in and losing in the first round, then is this it,
And looking at the Rams side of the ball, on offense, what matchup do you want to see the most in this game?
Well, is J.J. Watt playing? I've been off Twitter today, so you're...
J.J. Watt has been activated today, so he will play, for sure.
Okay, yeah, well, so depending on what my favorite player to watch on the Rams for the offensive side of the ball is Andrew Whitworth, who I think is one of the most underrated players in the league. He's objectively been the best pass protecting tackle in the NFL this season. And so what the Cardinals do with like Hassan Reddick, JJ Watt, who has that inside out versatility, I'll definitely be checking out Andrew Whitworth, because I expect him to pretty much lock those guys down. And then obviously Chandler Jones as well.
Pretty good matchup. It'll finalize the divisional round going forward. We'll see what happens tonight on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2. Don't miss it. Should be an interesting game, possibly even an offensive shootout. Moving to our next story, and unfortunately it's one we have to discuss, especially with the events that took over Wild Card Weekend, is just referees are just making mistakes left and right, and none bigger than the one Jerome Boger put down in the Cincinnati-Las Vegas game. No Flags, what is your take on this? Is it just, once again, we're talking about officiating where we don't need to be talking about it, or is it time for the NFL to actually step up and do something about it?
Yeah, so I kind of have a different take on officiating just in general than I think a lot of people. And my opinion on refereeing is that I don't actually place a ton of blame on the refs. I think that just the job, I mean, you have like senior citizens out here that are trying to, in real time, gauge, I mean, like spot the ball with, inch to inch perfection and monitor all these things that are going on. I mean, it's like an incredibly difficult job. And then so you can contrast this archaic system that we have with all of the technology that we have available, and the fact that they're always calling in, rules experts from New York that immediately can give their opinions. I just don't understand why the NFL sets these arbitrary limits on what can be reviewed, what can be overturned, how many times they can, call down and change a call or whatever. I mean, I think that you just completely open it up, let the people in New York at any time be like, hey, that wasn't a holding. Hey, that wasn't a pass interference. And the common, response to that is, oh, that would slow the game down so much. First of all, when it comes to adding new commercial breaks in between, I mean, every time a player takes a breath, we get a message from State Farm. So, I mean, they're more than willing to slow the game down to make money, but not to make the product actually better. But the other thing is that, have you ever watched a game, like take the Titans, for example, where at the end of the game, you just objectively know, oh, we lost because of the refs, because of something that me sitting on my couch, I could tell that was a bad call. It could have been easily fixed. I mean, that's such an empty feeling. And I guarantee you that the fans of any team that gets screwed over by a bad officiating call, they would trade, increasing the average NFL game length by 7 minutes to eliminate those bad calls. So I think the solution is just staring them in the face. And, they tried to kind of like halfway do the pass interference thing, did a very bad job implementing that. So, yeah, I think that if I was commissioner, I would be laying down the law, making some pretty rash changes.
And those are good points you bring up, and I'll put you in the commissioner seat for just a minute. If there's one thing you feel that the NFL needs to change on reviewing plays, what is the big one they need to change the most right now?
What's the big one that they need to the biggest thing that they need to change? I think the whole thing of like blowing a whistle dead and then anything that happens after that you can't change. The refs, to give them credit, have started to lean more towards just letting the play go on. If it's like a receiver catches it and can't really tell if he dropped it or fumbled it, they pick it up and they're running it back. It's like, just let the play out, and then we'll revisit it in reviewing. But I think that shouldn't be up to the referee's decision. I think, that should just be the established method, that anytime there's something that's a little bit questionable, just let it play out. Let's see what the results would have been, and then we can go back and check and see if it needs to be called back.
And it'd be one of those things where you would hope that it would definitely improve the game if they'd sit and actually make that adjustment. But only time will tell if it actually comes to fruition. So,
and I mean,
good suggestions.
How motivated really should they be from a financial standpoint? Because as bad as the refereeing is and as bad as the product can be at sometimes, I'm still going to watch every single time. I mean, it's kind of like airport restaurants. They don't have any reason to have good prices. You're there. What else are you going to watch?
Exactly.
Surely not watching Young Sheldon.
At least not many people are. When the kids start growing up, the show loses interest. But
yeah,
that happens with a lot of good TV shows. Moving on to our next story and interest, and it's been discussed that it's a possibility that Mike McCarthy might be on his way out just to save either Dan Quinn or even Kellen Moore to possibly promote them to the head coaching job. So do you feel that this might be another abrupt Jerry Jones move that we've seen him do in the past, or do you think it's just all talk right now?
Well, I would say that Mike McCarthy definitely should be fired, not because of what went down in the 49ers game. I don't think he should have been hired in the first place. I think that if you're going to fire Mike McCarthy and replace him with Dan Quinn, that's kind of just a lateral move. I mean, we've seen Dan Quinn be a head coach without a very good offensive coordinator. It was the end of his stay with the Falcons, and it wasn't very inspiring, wasn't very successful. I think he's a solid, competent coach, but to get them where they need to be, I don't think he's the best choice. Kellen Moore, I know everybody has a sour taste in their mouth because of the quarterback draw call, but I think just from an X's and O's standpoint, he's an excellent play caller. Obviously their offensive personnel is amazing, and so it's not that hard to create an explosive offense. But I like a lot of the concepts that they run, and they're really good from an execution standpoint. So you can tell that he's doing a good job communicating, what guys need to do. So, I mean, my move would be fire Mike McCarthy, hire Kellen Moore, just because, I think Mike McCarthy is an objectively bad coach.
And I can see that being a possibility. I mean, Jerry Jones at one point let go Wade Phillips just to keep Jason Garrett. And it seemed like Garrett was going to stay around forever. But
yeah, I mean,
let's just say,
I think there's a real value in like having a good offensive coach is way more valuable than having a good defensive coach or having like one of these CEO types. There's really only a handful of defensive coaches or CEO type coaches that have been able to last long in the NFL. Obviously, Bill Belichick, the greatest NFL coach of all time. You've got Mike Tomlin, who I would say is the greatest CEO coach of all time. And I view Mike Vrabel as kind of approaching like in that Mike Tomlin tier. So I think he has the potential to be really good. But the issue that you see with a lot of these defensive coaches is they might, luck into a good offensive coordinator hire. And so their offense is good for a couple years. And then that coach gets hired away to be the head coach somewhere else. And you're just banking on consistently making the right hire, where if you've got Andy Reid, if you've got Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, it doesn't matter who your offensive coordinator is. You have that built-in floor that you're going to have a competent and innovative offense because the head coach is an offensive guy. So I think anytime you're in this situation where you have a middling head coach with a promising young offensive coach, I would be very aggressive in terms of trying to keep that offensive coach at all costs.
Kellen Moore definitely would be a very good coach if he had the opportunity. But let's say, for argument's sake, McCarthy does stay. What team do you think right now would benefit the most from Kellen Moore's offense?
Let's see. Let me pull up NFL head coach openings.
I think as of right now, you have the Minnesota job, Chicago, Miami, New York,
I would say Minnesota.
Denver, and Jacksonville.
I would say Minnesota is a good fit. I would say Denver is a good fit. I would say Chicago could actually be a good fit. And I think if Vegas ended up moving on, I think they could be a good fit. The main thing with Kellen Moore is that his offense is very heavy 11 personnel, which 11 personnel is one back, one tight end. And they'll run some 12, and they really value having three good receivers, that like three high caliber starting receivers, because a lot of their passing concepts really do involve every weapon that's on the field. So I look at a team like Minnesota with Irv Smith Jr., who's a really underrated tight end that tore his ACL, I believe, this offseason, so he missed the year. A team like Chicago with Cole Kmet, Justin Fields, obviously the young quarterback, and then you've got Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, depending on how that works out. And then a team like Denver, where you've got Albert O, Noah Fant, obviously a really deep receiving core, and then they're kind of just banking on getting one of the big free agent quarterbacks. So yeah, I would say those three teams.
Good fits, I would say. And eventually Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore are going to have a lot of opportunities to be head coaches, but we'll see how it plays out with the Dallas Cowboys. But more than likely, two of them are going to be head coaches. One of them might not be. We'll see how that plays as it goes. And moving on in our next bit of news, this dropping a little earlier today, Mike Mayok is officially out as the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders, and it shouldn't shock anyone. So no flags. At this point right now, it seems the Raiders are cleaning house. And does it seem like the head coach is going to be the next pin to drop?
Well, I mean, if you look at the and I'm not going to try to pronounce their interim head coach's name, but if you look at all of the adversity that Vegas went through this season, the fact that they were able to make the playoffs, I think, is a huge testament to the kind of leadership that he was able to bring to the table. I think that I'm a big fan. If you're trying to like start a new regime, I don't like this thing where you keep the GM and you bring in the new coach, or you keep the coach, bring in the GM. I want them kind of both there together to be like, you guys are on the same timetable. You guys need to be in lockstep. I'm not going to have a situation where a head coach comes into a quarterback situation that the GM created, and the head coach isn't all in on it, and you have that tension. So I think you would have to kind of, I would make the GM plans, and then let him obviously be a part of deciding who the next head coach is going to be.
And of course, Mark Davis, being the guy that he is always going to go for the home run hire just on every position. Mm-hmm. So you have to have balance on both sides where the GM and the head coach can find, like you said, just that balance and make it work. So in your opinion, who do you think would be a good pairing?
So GM, I can't really speak to, because I think it's, when you look at people that haven't had GM jobs before, from the outside looking in, it's really impossible for me to evaluate what the Eagles' vice president of player personnel actually does. Like, I have no idea. I know that obviously Mark Davis wants to make that splashy hire, but I would stick with the guy that they have right now. I think that it makes no sense to screw up a good thing.
And it is a good point, but Davis got a Davis, as we all know. Raiders got a Raider.
Yeah. I wouldn't hate, if they're going big name, I wouldn't hate John Harbaugh. I'm kind of lower on Brian Flores than I think a lot of people are. But yeah, I would probably give John Harbaugh for like big name guys.
That would definitely be a good fit for them. Flores, definitely a defensive-minded coach. I think more along the lines, Davis would want somebody to try and fit alongside with Derek Carr. So you could possibly, I would agree with Harbaugh, and I would possibly even say Kellen Moore might not be a bad option, but that's one we'll just have to wait and see on. But I do have more on that, but we'll probably try and discuss that a little later. And of course, we'll break down a few of the scores that we saw as of Wild Card Weekend. Of course, Tennessee Titans and the Green Bay Packers on a bye week, chilling back, kicking it. But really just a lot of games where there was a lot of domination, and really two that were close. So out of the 49ers and Cowboys and the Raiders and Bengals, which do you feel was the better game to watch?
Yeah, I thought the 49ers and Cowboys was the best game of the weekend. And pretty low bar, obviously. But yeah, I would go Niners Cowboys.
And we already discussed the Steelers-Chiefs was just a mismanagement of just scheduling of massive proportions. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like you would think that, Big Ben probably going to be his last game. To me, that just felt like more of an afternoon game. Do you think the NFL just kind of missed it on this one?
Yeah, it's hard to say. There have been years for sure that I think there could have been seven seeds that deserved to make the playoffs. Even this year, like if you put the Cowboys up against the Chiefs, I think that could have been a competitive game. But just the way that the chips fall sometimes, the best teams don't always get into the playoffs. It's hard to complain too much about more football because, after the wild card weekend, you're still going to get those big time matchups that you had before. So it's just kind of an extra meaningless game on top of it.
And it definitely felt as if there was just a lot of meaningless games, especially some of the blowouts that we had to endure, including the Patriots and the Bills, which I honestly felt that it was possibly going to be a little closer than that. Is it just a testament to the Bills that they're really just a true contender, or are the Patriots just as bad as we thought they were going to be, maybe even worse going forward?
Yeah, I think the Patriots are definitely a true contender, especially when Josh Allen is firing on all cylinders like that. I think that the biggest thing with the Patriots is you really start to see the age and lack of speed in some key positions show up, especially at linebacker. Jawan Bentley and Dante Hightower were awful in this game. They've, got some veterans in the secondary that I think they'll eventually try to move on from. They just don't have a dominant receiving threat. And if all you can do is just come out with 2 tight ends and run the ball, that can help you steamroll some bad teams like Jacksonville. But when you get into a high-powered offensive showdown, it's not always that consistent.
Especially when your rookie quarterback's more interested at seeing his breath than really just seeing the playbook. Well, all right, everybody, that's our top news. And we're going to go and get a 30-second break in, and when we come back, we're going to break down Tennessee Titans facing the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll see what the Bengals are bringing, and we'll break down what the Titans have to do to put them in their place and possibly move on to the AFC Championship. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour, and we'll be back in 30.
Okay, so what now? We've made it this far. Listen, we don't celebrate just because we did the work. Job's not done. Everything's stacked up against us this year. Sure, but it's fuel. We've been chopping a lot of wood. Wait. Let me get this straight. This is their plan. They want to come here, to our house, and do what they want. Good luck. We're getting hot now!
Arthur, 1, Brown, at the 10, at the 5, touchdown!
Welcome to the playoffs! You win or you burn.
Hey, listen, I'm trying to tell y'all, man. Get them Titans, baby.
The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining us Monday evening. I'd like to thank our guest tonight, No Flags Film, for joining us. Want to make sure you get a chance, sir, to shout out and let the fans know where to find you.
Yeah, No Flags Film on YouTube and No Flags Film on Twitter. Pretty simple little search there. Just all one word.
Check it out, man. He's got the best stuff on the web. One of the best in the biz. Underrated and definitely entertaining. Well, all right, guys. Hitting the little screen. The next segment we have is called Know Your Foe. And as we know right now, the Tennessee Titans will be facing the Cincinnati Bengals 3:30 Central Time on CBS and Paramount Plus. So going forward, we've got to see what we're up against. And starting with the quarterback, of course, we've got Joe Burrow. 34 touchdowns this year and 4,611 yards. No Flags, what makes Joe Burrow so special for the Cincinnati offense?
Well, I mean, for Joe Burrow, the biggest thing is his composure under pressure. They have a terrible offensive line. I would say a bottom 5 offensive line from a pass protecting standpoint. And he's still been able to be really effective under pressure. One of the best quarterbacks in the NFL outside of the pocket. Doesn't have a great arm. I mean, he has an NFL average arm, but he's really accurate, really good decision maker, great poise, and then obviously he has incredible weapons to throw to.
And from a comparison standpoint, and I don't usually do these a lot because I hate comparing players to other players, but is there anybody or any other player's game that he kind of just shines a little bit of?
Definitely Tony Romo. That was my comparison for him coming out of college. And, I think, not to use the overplayed term for white quarterbacks, but he's sneaky athletic, So yeah, I would say Tony Romo is the closest comparison. Maybe a little bit of like Dak Prescott, even I could see.
And especially with having an offensive line, as the kids would say, is sus. You got to give credit, especially to the next player up, Joe Mixon. Once again, having another 1,000-yard season, 13 touchdowns, 1,205 yards. A very big key piece to the backfield for them. So no flags. The Bengals can run the ball if they want to.
Yeah, they can. I mean, I think that their running game certainly isn't dominant. Jonah Williams at left tackle is really their only offensive lineman that I would say is above average. And I think Joe Mixon's a really good running back, but he's not in that elite tier. And outside of that elite tier, if you don't get good blocking, you're not going to be that productive. I think that the running game for the Bengals should be the least of the Titans' worries. If they want to play with lighter boxes to try to defend the pass a little bit more effectively, and the cost is that the Bengals average 4.5 yards a carry, I think you make that trade-off any day.
And, of course, especially with the offense clicking on all cylinders, you have to give more credit, especially to the first-year sensation, Jamar Chase. 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns. He is playing at an elite level in year one. And I've got to ask, no flags, I mean, is there any receiver that he just shines flashes of, just anyone in particular that's just jumped out, running out of the gates? It looks like they're going to be basically, we'll say all Madden.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Jamar Chase reminds me a lot of I would say an AJ Brown with a little bit less physicality at the line of scrimmage, just as far as what they can do after the catch. I think Anquan Bolden, to kind of throw it back, is another one with Jamar Chase, but he's a really interesting player, and he has what he's done this year has definitely not been perfect. I mean, there's a lot of areas that he can definitely improve on, and the fact that he set the rookie receiving record while still not being a complete player, in my opinion, definitely speaks to how much potential he has to even exceed what he's done this season. If he can improve catching the ball, which was never an issue in college, if he can improve his release off the line of scrimmage a little bit better, I mean, there's no reason he can't be the best receiver in the NFL.
And right behind him, you have a very talented T. Higgins who caught over 1,000 yards. Another problem the Titans are going to have to keep their eye on. Is he just a good move-around player, or is just T. Higgins just better at just running up the field and trying to catch it?
Yeah, he's a really interesting player. I'm normally not a fan of kind of bigger, contested catch guys. A lot of times they're pretty stiff, when it comes to side-to-side breaking on routes and that sort of thing. But I was a big fan of T. Higgins coming out because I think that he creates enough separation, to where he's not going to be slowing down the quarterback getting through his passing concepts and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, when you look at him as a number one option, I'm not sure that he's there, but as a number two, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were both top 10 in the NFL in yards per route run this season. And then you add, which I'm sure you're going to get into, but Tyler Boyd in the slot, and then what Joe Mixon can do catching the ball out of the backfield. It's a top 2, top 3 group of weapons for Joe Burrow, in my opinion.
And bringing up Tyler Boyd, a good point. And I think the next question I've got to ask, especially with the receivers on the board right now, what right now is the best matchup for our secondary amongst the receivers? Which player matches up best with which player?
I actually think that Jackrabbit Jenkins on Tyler Boyd is a good matchup. What I will say is that the Titans secondary, it's not really a matchup secondary. They line up Christian Fulton on the same side of the field every play, Jackrabbit Jenkins on the same side of the field every play. So if you're looking from the standpoint of the quarterback, like you're facing the defense, Christian Fulton is going to be on your left. I think 88% of snaps he played at left cornerback this year. Jenkins is going to be on the right, and then Molden in the slot. And so the matchups are really dictated by the offense as far as where they line guys up. Jamar Chase has that versatility to play in the slot. So, him versus Elijah Molden, I don't feel great about. But anytime Jackrabbit Jenkins is on T. Higgins, I think that Jenkins has the physicality that you need to cover a guy like T. Higgins. And, you watch Jenkins move around the field. He is still one of the fastest players in the NFL. So I feel really good about that matchup. Christian Fulton versus Jamar Chase, I'm really interested. I'm in the process of watching Bengals film, and so I would probably have a better answer for you in a few days. To me, Christian Fulton is a number 1 corner in the NFL. He's definitely had a breakout season, and so my guess is that matchup, Jamar Chase will probably get some receptions on him. Christian Fulton will probably have a couple nice pass breakups, but it should be fun to watch for sure.
Even more fun knowing that Fulton and Chase have a long history together, playing high school football together and playing at LSU as well. So the first time they'll be matching up one-on-one, that's not a practice situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to look at the Cincinnati Bengals defense, and their key piece right now is going to be a very interesting situation because, unfortunately, Trey Hendrickson is in a concussion protocol, and he's their sack leader. So, how big of a blow could this be to their front defense?
Yeah, a massive blow for sure. Trey Hendrickson has really impressed me this season. This past offseason, he was one of the edge rushers that I thought, I didn't want the Titans to sign. I thought that he was going to get overpaid. His production his last season in New Orleans was inflated by some high sack numbers. And if you look at his pressure rate, pass block win rate, he didn't really deserve that top tier contract. But he's improved so much this season. He's a very versatile player in terms of having the ability to win off the edge with speed. He's got, doesn't really do a full bull rush, but kind of a long arm, and then he can counter rips off of that. So yeah, very, very big loss for the Bengals if he is not able to go.
And watching the game with the Raiders, it amazed me just how bad their defensive front just got as the game went on. They literally were gassed by the fourth quarter. So for a team like Tennessee that runs heavy, and especially having Derrick Henry come back to the fold and rotate guys out with Hillard and Foreman, how important is it that the Bengals find a way to try and keep their rotation fresh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I'm really looking for with Todd Downing here is he going to be flexible in his game plan? Because I'm sure that they are going into this game looking at a depleted Bengals front that wasn't really that good to begin with. Obviously, the return of Derrick Henry, and they're saying all right, we're going to run the ball and do that. That's a great game plan. But if they're stacking 8-9 in the box like we saw with Baltimore in the last playoff game, it doesn't matter how, like, the talent disparity in the NFL is just not wide enough to overcome having 2 extra people in the box. These are all professional players, and if you're outnumbered, and you're not going to be successful running the ball. So how versatile, how flexible is he going to be in terms of throwing against those looks with a stacked box?
And it's going to be interesting, especially to see King Henry, if he'll be ready and in game shape, as we wait and see. And looking at their lead interceptor of the season, it would be Logan Wilson with 4 picks right now. And he's a sneaky player.
Yeah, they've got some they have some interesting, like, different kind of skill sets at linebacker with Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt was pretty terrible his first few years in the league, but he's played a lot better. Wilson, I was actually watching some Logan Wilson tape earlier this season because he got off to a really hot start. Kind of cooled down a little bit, but yeah, I mean, they're pretty solid at linebacker. Not to, like, jump ahead of you, but who I really like on their defense is Chidobe Awuzie at outside corner. He's another guy very similar to Trey Hendrickson, who I thought got overpaid. And they let go of William Jackson and replaced him with Chidobe Awuzie. I thought that was a downgrade. It ended up being an upgrade. They let go of Carl Lawson for Trey Hendrickson. I thought it was a downgrade. Ended up being an upgrade. So yeah, I mean, credit to the Bengals front office for making some smart moves on the defensive side of the ball.
And you bringing up Ujier, funny enough, you brought him up, that he's actually possibly injured as well. I can't remember to what extent, but I know it was bad enough to where he had to be off the field for a significant amount of time. So that's another player Tennessee's probably going to have to be waiting to see if he'll be playing or not this week, alongside with Hendrickson. But breaking out the stats, I mean, the Bengals are very much a passing team, but you can see where their weaknesses are as well. They do dominate, especially on offensive yardages, but they give up just as much for their opponent's side. And from a point of third down conversions is very worrisome, where you've only completed 82 out of a 207. So it shows that you have to put a lot of pressure on Burrow. So do you think that they're going to have to bring a lot of blitzes and try to disguise some blitzes with this week?
I would not expect them to blitz very often. Joe Burrow's the PFF's 5th highest graded quarterback against the blitz. And whenever they face one of these quarterbacks that can do some stuff out of the pocket, and they also have a really good processing ability, like Patrick Mahomes, for example, you see them not blitz, just play a lot of coverage. And I think that's the best thing to do. I think even just when you're rushing 4, I think that they might be a little bit more conservative as far as how aggressive they are running their stunts. They might run a lot more contained pass rushes just to try to keep him inside the pocket. You saw them do that with Josh Allen a lot. Really try to force this offense to operate in structure, because Joe Burrow is a smart enough quarterback that if you send him a blitz 9 times out of 10, he's going to find the soft spot and pick it up.
But also showing that the Bengals rushing the ball, they're very well, but unfortunately, when they're on defense, they can't find a way to stop the run. So with Henry definitely being back in the fold, what's the other running back that you would like to try and rotate in regularly to try and keep Cincinnati's defense off balance?
I would probably go with Dontrell Hilliard. Not that I think he's necessarily better than Deontay Foreman, just that his skill set is a bit more of a change-up from Derrick Henry. I would expect Hilliard to still be Tennessee's third down back, as he has been for the past 7 or 8 weeks. and I'm a lot higher on Dontrell Hilliard than a lot of Titans fans are, but I think that he's shown some really good vision, and he has that lateral agility that Foreman and Henry kind of lack.
And it will definitely be a very interesting rotation to see. And going forward, here's our 3 keys to win the game. And I'll break mine down, and no flags. If you got any to add, you're more than welcome to. First, I definitely am going to throw out, you've got to pressure Burrow early and often. The biggest key component is they don't do well on third downs, and that's really where I want to bring all the pressure. So the narrative here is I just feel he can throw the ball when he's moving, but if he's in the pocket, I feel he just doesn't have as much success making the throw as he would as he moves. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this isn't necessarily specific to the Bengals, but the more that you can get pressure with 4, the better. I think versus Cincinnati's offensive line with the guys that we have on the front, I would expect them to be able to get to the quarterback with 4. And, the Titans haven't been a blitz-heavy team really at all this season. But, I mean, there's a lot of ways to pressure the quarterback without blitzing.
That's definitely true there. And bringing up the second point, they have to win the turnover battle on defense. And one thing the Tennessee Titans have been excellent at is forcing turnovers. So at this point right now, it's more than critical at this point to try and force turnovers, especially in the playoffs. So what would be a good package to go up against this Cincinnati offense defensively?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like personnel, the Titans are going to run nickel with 5 DBs around 70 or 80% of the time. I don't have the numbers in front of me. So, yeah, I mean, I would expect them to be a nickel. The Bengals are an 11 personnel team. They don't come out heavy very often. So, I would expect Zach Cunningham and David Long to be the 2 linebackers and not see a lot of 3 linebacker sets. And the way that the Titans defense has been playing coverage-wise this season has been kind of a significant change-up from what we've normally seen under Mike Vrabel. They've been playing a lot more too-high stuff with quarters or rotating down into cover 3 out of split safety. And it's worked pretty well for them. Fulton and Jenkins, along with a really great safety duo and Amani Hooker and Kevin Byard, is, made in a lab to play quarters coverage. And so I would expect them to pretty much keep up with what they've been doing and throw the occasional wrinkle in there, obviously.
And bringing me to my final point, and I've already brought this up, they've got to pound a rock. Cincinnati's defense is less than average when trying to defend the run. And with Derrick Henry back in the fold, I think you got to feed the beast.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. My one thing that I've already said is you've got to adjust if they're selling out to stop that. You can't just do what we did in Baltimore and just kind of say if we just keep slamming it into a stacked box, we're going to break through. Gotta trust Tannehill to open it up.
And especially having a healthy A.J. Brown and Julio Jones would definitely help things this time around. So out of the 2, who do you think might be the receiver that gets targeted a little more this time around?
Let's see. I could actually see it would depend. I would actually go out on a limb and say Julio. I'm working on a Julio video for this week, and I've actually been really impressed by Julio over the past several weeks. Just his ability to create separation. I think that Titans fans are kind of sleeping on him. Even in the San Francisco game where he was barely targeted, I mean, he was getting open. So I think that whoever Awuzie isn't guarding, I think has the potential to have a big game.
It'll definitely be interesting to see if Julio has that breakout game we've been wanting to see him have. It's going to be an interesting playoff game altogether. We'll get to scores in a little bit, but we've got some other games to break down along with that. So we'll take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we're going to break down all the divisional matchups, and we'll give our picks. Maybe. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour, and we'll be back in 30.
This probably is not a popular thought at this point, but I still don't think anybody wants to see the Titans when you get into the postseason.
You know what? I'm not leaving.
Did anybody watch this defense and how they just ruined people up front with that front four?
I'm not leaving.
The adversity that this team has overcome, the fact that they continue to play tough-nosed football, they get after the quarterback, and again in the playoffs, they're going to be a tough team to play.
Hey, Craig, want to keep going?
I'm not leaving.
City to city, me tripping my gun, tripping to try something. Picture me in the kitchen, yeah, pitching. I need a side going digital, please. Still hit me up trying to buy something.
This is my home.
Cause he who doesn't hustle ain't entitled to a pie crumb. Might be the murder trial, to us that's called triumph. Living to the limit, I'm just saying, you only die once. Pouring out champagne for all the good that died young. I think this makes 3.
The show goes on.
The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining us this Monday evening. Once again, thank you, No Flags Film, for being here tonight. It's always great when we get his perspective on all the stats and all the matchups going forward. So thank you once again, buddy, for being on the show tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
And I got to get my plug in. If you love the show, help it grow. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at the Power Hour 615. And don't forget, we're also on TikTok. Well, No Flags, we got some divisional games to break down. Let's go ahead and jump into them.
Let's do it.
So looking at it right now, the divisional round is set for the most part. We'll save the Cincinnati-Tennessee game for the end, but we'll start with the San Francisco and Green Bay game on Fox at 8:15 Eastern. I am very excited about this matchup. We're seeing the 49ers play the way we thought they were supposed to be playing, especially with the Jimmy Garoppolo that's playing, well, good enough. And, of course, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers tear up the league with new standards and new practices. But, hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to Aaron Rodgers. So, in this game, who do you like the most matching up one-on-one?
I'm interested to see Trent Williams and the 49ers run game against the Green Bay Packers front seven. Devondre Campbell deservedly got voted as an All-Pro at linebacker. Rashawn Gary's been having a really good year. Not sure what the status of Zadarius Smith is. But, yeah, I mean, I think I always enjoy watching Shanahan's play calling, play design, especially in the opening 15. So probably like how the 49ers are going to run the ball and then do play action off of that.
So we'll go ahead and hit the score here. I feel that this is going to be an air show kind of game, but that's my perspective. No Flags, who do you like in this game? Who wins it and moves to the NFC Championship?
I'm going to go Packers 30-16.
Good pick. I will also go with the Green Bay Packers, but I will say 41-24. And we'll move on to the Sunday matchups. Right now, we have to see who wins the Arizona and LA game, but the winner will match up against Tampa Bay, 3 o'clock Eastern on NBC and Peacock. So No Flags, once again, Tom Brady is without some key pieces, and they still find ways to win. Is it just the greatness of Tom Brady being shown again, or is it just they played a really bad Philadelphia team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles are really, really bad. We've talked enough about the 7 seed issue, but that was not a playoff team. I like if the Rams win against Arizona, I like them to beat Tampa Bay. But I would pick Tampa Bay over Arizona.
And it's interesting you brought up the Rams, where Tampa Bay and LA already have played this year, and LA coming out as the winner. Do you think that might even be a potential possibility?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would be your score on the game?
For Rams Bucks,
Yeah.
I would go. Let's go 34-23 Rams.
All right. And just for fun, let's say if Arizona gets in.
I would go 31-20 Bucks.
Two different results. We got to give you the best of both worlds, everybody. We don't know who's winning this thing, so we're doubling up. So you get one of each. You're welcome. Then moving to the Sunday evening game. This had the potential of being an AFC championship matchup, but oh well. We've got the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs matching up on CBS at 6:30 Eastern. So no flags. Once again, another matchup of two offensive juggernauts with fairly decent defenses. So what's going to be the key for the Chiefs to get to their third consecutive AFC championship?
The key for the Chiefs is to have Frank Clark, who is one of the most overpaid players in the NFL, show up and pressure Josh Allen, and then having a good game from L'Jarius Sneed, their number one corner. It might be recency bias, but because I haven't been that high on the Bills this year, but I would go Bills 38-28.
Going with the Buffalo Bills on this one. I like it. Would you call it an upset?
What's the line? I'm not sure.
I would have to say the line would probably go in favor with Kansas City, with that probably being a home game.
Yeah, I would bet the Chiefs are favored by like 2. So I guess it would be an upset. It's Kansas City minus 2.5. So yeah, upset there.
All right, we got our first upset. No flags film. Buffalo Bills with the upset here. I like it. But will I go that direction? Am I brave enough to go that direction? I'll go Kansas City on this one. I have a hard time seeing the Buffalo Bills winning in Arrowhead in January. Mm-hmm. So I will go with this, though. I will say Kansas City 23, Buffalo 20, overtime.
Nice.
So I'll give an overtime score there. And finally, to put it to bed, the last game, the one everybody wants to know about, Cincinnati, Tennessee, on Saturday, 4:30 Eastern on CBS. No flags. What is the key component here to get the Titans to a victory?
I think, I'll give an offensive and defensive one. I think offensively, what I've talked about is definitely try to run the ball, but be flexible and take what the defense gives you. And then defensively, I just think that they need to continue their sound coverage that they've had pretty much since like week 4 or 5. If we have busted coverages like we had earlier in the season, the Bengals can put 14 points up on the board in the blink of an eye. So that would be my keys.
And what are 3 things Tennessee needs to avoid in order not to lose this game?
So I'll say running into stacked boxes. I think they can't have a disastrous game in pass protection. And I think that I guess I'll recycle. I'll say the coverage busts. Christian Fulton, Jackrabbit Jenkins, they've been really good on the last half of the year, and so they need to keep it up.
And I know we already talked about not potentially giving a score here, and don't want you to get the jinx or anything like that. So I think we just said we'd let you choose who the MVP of the game would be, so we'll do that for you.
MVP of the game. I think the MVP of the game for the Titans, if they win, will be Julio Jones, and I think MVP of the game for the Bengals, if they win, I'll go chalk. I'll just say Joe Burrow.
All right. And I will give the score prediction, so I'll take that bullet for you.
There we go.
So the feeling that I feel very firmly about the Titans have to get back to dominance by showing that Derrick Henry is ready to go. But like you said, they have to avoid running into fully loaded boxes. 8 in the box, can't do that. So you got to get the ball out. You got to get it to Julio. You got to get it to AJ. That's why we got these receivers. That's why you put them out there. That's why they make the big bucks. That's how you win games. I like Tennessee in this game. You can call me the home run hitter. I'll hit that damn home run. Tennessee wins this one 31-20.
Would love to see that.
31-20 on that. Tennessee punches their ticket and goes back to the AFC Championship the second time in 4 years. So I will take that bullet. I will take that grenade. I have no problem with that.
I appreciate it.
I won't let no flags do that because we already talked about that at length. I'll be the one to be the fall guy, so no worries.
There we go.
All right, everybody. It's been a great show tonight. I want to thank No Flags Film for joining me once again. One of the best in the biz on the web. Check out his site, No Flags. Let him know where to go.
No Flags Film on YouTube and No Flags Film on Twitter if you want in-depth X's and O's breakdowns of the Tennessee Titans.
The man's the best in the biz and none other. He can be modest, but I'm going to build up his praise. Dude knows his stuff. All right, everybody. Once again, I want to thank you for joining the show tonight. It's been a great time. Don't forget, if you love the show, help it grow. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at the Power Hour 615. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell on your way out if you're watching on YouTube. So we'll be back on Monday to discuss what has happened. Hopefully we'll be going to the AFC Championship. Let's just handle our business, knock on wood. I want everybody to have a great night. Take care and tighten up.
Peace out.
Thank you for watching The Power Hour. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more content. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at The Power Hour 615. Thank you. Have a great night.